Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Homeless service providers in San Diego responding to the state auditor's report. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The deep dive on homelessness spending was released this week. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more on the auditor's recommendations and reaction.
Homelessness has gone up in San Diego in recent years, and the auditor acknowledges the main reason is the lack of affordable housing. But affordable housing wasn't the focus of the auditor's report. Instead, it looks at the city's programs to manage the homelessness crisis. The big conclusion, San Diego should centralize in one annual report all the spending it does on homelessness relief programs so it can better track their effectiveness. Hanan Scrapper is the regional director for People Assisting the Homeless, or PATH. The nonprofit operates the city's coordinated street outreach program. The goal is to get people ready for placement in permanent housing as soon as it's available, and just to help them survive.
It also really focuses on trying to meet people's basic human needs, right? Like all our outreach teams have water and food and blankets and clothing and like first aid kits on them, so that as you're encountering people, you're able to really start with like building trust by meeting their basic human needs.
Scrapper says building trust isn't something that's easy to quantify. PATH does collect and report data on how many people it reaches and how often they're referred to shelter, medical care, or housing. But the lack of housing is the real reason why more people aren't getting off the streets, says Rebecca Louie, president of the affordable housing nonprofit Wakeland Housing. She told KPBS, quote, "Everyone wants to blame homelessness on everything but the extreme shortage of housing that low-income people can afford. I don't think more reporting is going to move the dial. In fact, it usually just results in less focus on the actual people being served." City officials agreed with the auditor's recommendation to put all its homelessness spending in one annual report. It also agrees that more affordable housing is the best way to end homelessness. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Well, the work continues, especially throughout the interior valleys as we work our way right into Thursday, but there will be some changes thereafter. We'll notice an increase in cloud coverage at the coast, some of those clouds expanding eventually into the interior valleys, ultimately leading to a cooler and at times even a wet weekend. All those details coming up. We'll also talk about temperatures in just a little bit.
The drawn-out battle between American consumers and higher prices saw another setback last month. A key government index released today shows price increases picked up again in March, driven by two essential areas. Here's Karen Kafa with a breakdown.
U.S. consumers continue to feel the squeeze of higher prices for essentials like gas and shelter. The Bureau of Labor Statistics said Wednesday that the Consumer Price Index increased at a year-over-year rate of 3.5% in March, the reading the highest annual gain in the last 6 months.
This has definitely been a setback. This is not good news. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Fed or anyone else should give up the fight against inflation.
Overall grocery prices stayed flat month to month, but they're up 1.2% from a year ago.
I think consumers continue to feel the pinch. I think consumers continue to compare prices to sort of pre-COVID or 2 or 3 years ago.
Purdue University professor of agricultural economics Joe Balagtas says that comparison, in addition to increased costs in other areas, could shade how consumers feel about their grocery tabs.
The things that we pay for outside of the grocery store also affect the money we have left to spend on groceries, right? So if we have to spend more on gasoline, if our auto insurance becomes more expensive, if our housing becomes more expensive.
Gas prices ticked up 1.7% from February to March, and the cost of auto insurance was up 2.6% last month, up a whopping 22% from 1 year ago. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
And here's a look at gas prices around San Diego County. The average price of a gallon of self-serve regular gas rose for the 23rd day in a row. It costs $5.33, 2 cents higher than yesterday. The average price has risen 42 cents over the past month. The national average just under $3.62. State Farm, California's largest insurer, announced the zip codes where it will discontinue homeowners insurance coverage. More than 30,000 homeowners across the state will be impacted. State Farm blames an increased risk of catastrophic wildfires, outdated regulations, and higher costs as reasons it won't renew the policies. Those who lose their insurance may have to join the California Fair Plan, the state's insurer of last resort. Insurance broker Carl Sussman says besides being expensive, the program has become overwhelmed with applicants.
When I say they have very few choices, I'm being kind. Some may literally have no choices. If they're too large for the California Fair Plan, then they're going to have to talk with a broker to try and get a policy that could be through Lloyd's of London. And we could be looking at premiums, without exaggerating, of $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year. You know, outrageous.
The state is looking to change regulations that would allow insurers to price policies on a home-by-home basis, something that's not currently allowed. Sussman says that should attract insurers back to the market again. And you can find more information on this story on our website, kpbs.org. President Biden is setting new regulations on the amount of forever chemicals found in our drinking water. Water utilities will be required to filter out 5 of the forever chemicals currently found in half of the U.S. drinking water. Those chemicals have been linked to a number of health issues, including cancer, heart disease, and reproductive problems. The CDC says they're often used to help products repel water and oil, but linger in the environment and the human body.
I'm Jeff Bennett. Tonight on the News Hour, is inflation under control enough for the Fed to lower interest rates? That's at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Barbershops are more than just places for haircuts. For decades, they've been sanctuaries for Black men. KPBS health reporter Heidi DeMarco shows us how UC San Diego medical students are leveraging this cultural tradition to raise cardiovascular health awareness.
It is. I thought so.
The scene at Freshly Faded Barbershop in North Park is bustling yet relaxed. Today's customers aren't just getting dope haircuts and fades, they're also getting quick health checkups.
Yeah, you can just put your arm down like this and just relax.
Every month, a group of UCSD School of Medicine students offer free blood pressure screenings at local barbershops as part of a student-led program called Fade Hypertension. It aims to address health disparities, particularly among the Black community.
Yeah, so the diastolic is good.
Tariq Woods is a first-year medical student and co-president of the program. He says the issue hits close to home, seeing several family members suffer heart attacks and strokes.
It's known that there are many very severe health disparities with hypertension in the Black community, and so being able to kind of go out and meet people where they are helps us to be able to raise awareness in the most impactful way.
Hypertension, or high blood pressure, increases the risk of heart disease, affecting 3 out of 4 Black adults by middle age. Heart disease is the leading cause of death among Black San Diego County residents. Arthur Allen grew up going to barbershops. He believes they're a safe place to talk to Black men about health.
Like I said, it's very disarming. You know, like, people may not have had a blood work done in years, and they might be embarrassed, they might feel on the spot, but at least they're taking that first step.
The student volunteers say the screenings provide a valuable opportunity for preventative care in a familiar environment. Derek Banks, the barbershop owner, uses his shop as a sanctuary for community support. Partnering with Fade Hypertension is his way of helping change how Black people think about health.
We have to reprogram ourselves and take away the stigma of doctors, you know, the scariness of it. So when you see them in plain clothes and they're here in the barbershop and they're cracking jokes with you and taking your blood pressure, I think that helps to humanize the aspect of doctoring, and that it's really cool to have medical students and people of color in particular doing that.
Through mentoring and outreach efforts, the program also encourages undergraduate Black students and students of color to pursue careers in medicine, helping address the shortage of healthcare professionals from underrepresented backgrounds. Heidi DeMarco, KPBS News.
Hillcrest has long been a haven for San Diego's LGBTQ community, and over the past couple of years, the neighborhood has been growing rapidly. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says city planning officials are seeking to balance the need for more housing in Hillcrest with new protections for LGBTQ nightlife.
So yeah, our spring decorations are up. We've got a lot of butterflies and Easter rabbits and
Brian Jennings is the co-owner of No. 1 Fifth Avenue, one of San Diego's oldest gay bars. It's cozy, divey, and always has some kitsch decor hanging from the ceiling.
For every different season, we've got a different theme, and we're very, very well known for our holiday and Christmas decorations.
No. 1 also has an open-air back patio that hosts karaoke, dance parties, and drag shows. It gets noisy late at night, and that's likely to cause some issues with a brand new 7-story apartment building next door. 16 balconies open directly onto the patio.
The developer actually approached us and made us an offer in order to sell the bar to them, as well as the real estate, at a fairly significant profit in order for them to incorporate this property into their development.
Jennings was not interested. He bought the bar in 2019 to ensure its preservation as the neighborhood continues to grow. Still, he knew owning a noisy business next to dense housing was a recipe for conflict.
Where I've studied it in other cities, a lot of times the bar owners spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal fees in order to fight, and after years of fighting the neighbors and the neighborhood, they always lose. And so what we're doing is we're trying to build a structure that will make sure that our sound is contained and we can still continue to coexist next door. It's going to cost us several $100,000s to do this. This is a very large investment. It's one of the largest investments that this bar has ever seen in history, and we're taking a big risk, but we believe that we can make it work.
City planning officials last month released a new draft of Hillcrest's long-term growth plan. They're trying to capitalize on the neighborhood's walkability and proximity to public transit and major employers like hospitals. The plan would allow a lot more housing, even high-rises, as long as they include new public gathering spaces like mini parks and plazas.
The future is in urban development.
Susan Jester is a longtime lesbian activist and has been a fixture in Hillcrest for decades. She says the bars here are more than just places to go drinking. They're a refuge.
I couldn't go down to the Gas Lamp Quarter or anywhere else in town to dance with my partner in 1980, but I could come here. And same thing with mourning a lost friend or organizing our community. It's sacred ground to us. And we want to keep it not just for us and for the history, but going forward so that young gay people, LGBT people come here and continue to feel that this is a safe and protected spot for them.
Jester got involved in planning the future of Hillcrest as the city was developing an LGBTQ cultural district. It calls for public art honoring the community's history here, and it requires landlords of new apartments to disclose to their tenants that this is an LGBTQ neighborhood with an active nightlife. Legacy businesses also get first dibs on new commercial spaces if their property gets redeveloped.
Some of the new developments, I could maybe afford a studio in some of them or nothing at all, depending on just how nice it is.
John Anderson is a renter in Hillcrest who's also been advocating around the neighborhood's growth plans. He says while he might not be able to afford those brand new apartments, somebody else can. And new housing can relieve the demand for Hillcrest's older homes that are more affordable.
I'm in a one-bedroom in a much more historic, older home. I was built in the 40s, so I can afford that pretty comfortably. When I went to renew, there was enough other vacant units in my building that they tried to raise my rent, and I was able to ask them not to, and they didn't.
Anderson hears the anxiety that some of his neighbors have around Hillcrest's current growth spurt. A lot of it is rooted in concerns about traffic. He says that's why the city wants to build out the bike, pedestrian, and transit network, so it's easier to live car-free, like he does.
But if you build these high-rises and you have the transportation network as it's being proposed in the plan, people will move here and they won't bring a car, or they might only bring one car. And that's going to be what allows the neighborhood to retain the charm that it has now, I think, while still bringing more people into the neighborhood to be able to live and afford to live here.
The public has until April 29th to comment on the growth plans for Hillcrest. It's expected to go before the City Council sometime this summer. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A federal judge in San Diego has banned the use of excited delirium in an upcoming police misconduct trial. The medical theory has been disproven as an explanation for when someone dies in custody. State lawmakers recently made it illegal to use the term as a cause of death in California. And KPBS South Bay reporter Corey Suzuki joins me now to discuss the decision. And a warning, we will be playing some police body camera footage that could be disturbing to some of our viewers. Welcome, Corey.
Thanks for having me, Maya.
Well, let's start with excited delirium. Tell us what this medical theory is and why is it now banned in the state of California as a cause of death?
Well, excited delirium is something that police and other first responders have been using for a long time to describe certain people who die suddenly in police custody. Specifically, the term has been used to describe people who experience agitation, sometimes related to people who are experiencing a mental health crisis or who have been using drugs and who then abruptly die while being restrained by police. But leading medical organizations in recent years have come out and said that this diagnosis has no scientific foundation. It's not based on any real research and is sort of more a loose collection of different symptoms that kind of serves as an overarching term but has no real meaning. And so and is also additionally disproportionately used by law enforcement to describe what happens when black men or other people of color die in police custody. So these organizations say that law enforcement should not be using the term.
So, Corey, why is this coming back now to San Diego?
Well, this is coming up now because of a lawsuit that the city of Chula Vista is facing. This lawsuit stems back 4 years to a death in custody that happened while somebody was being held by Chula Vista police in March of 2020. And that man was named Oral Nunes. He was a business owner from Northern California. He owned a trucking company near Stockton, and he was in town to visit his daughter who was living in Chula Vista. And Oral Nunes, that evening, in an evening in March, he started experiencing a mental health crisis, and his daughter, worried about his safety, called 911 to try and get some help from police. But when officers arrived, they restrained him and used what his family members allege are violent methods. They used unlawful force, and when paramedics arrived, they found that Oral Nunes had stopped breathing. So what happened next was that the county medical examiner, they did an autopsy of Oral Nunes's body, and they found that they couldn't determine a cause of death, but they said that he had likely died due to excited delirium. Remember, this was before California passed this law, so it was a cause of death that they could still reference, and so that was what they relied on.
Can you tell us what happened after that?
Well, Oral Nunes' family disagreed with the police version of events, and so they said that the police had used unlawful force, had violated Oral Nunes' civil rights, and had targeted him because he was black, and so they filed a suit against the city of Chula Vista, and they asked the judge in that suit to remove all mentions of excited delirium from the trial, and last week this federal judge sided with them and said that would be how the trial would be proceeding without any mentions of this controversial medical term.
And how will the excited delirium theory fit into all of this?
Well, I think that remains to be seen at this point. California was the first to pass this national ban on excited delirium. Other states are now considering this, but I think what happens exactly in this trial, we'll have to wait and see. But I think one person that I spoke to for this story was Assemblymember Mike Gibson, who introduced California's ban on the use of the term as a medical term, as a cause of death, and he said that this is one step closer to allowing Oral Nunes' family to find out the truth about what happened now that this term is not going to be part of the case.
Some great reporting. Thank you so much, Corey.
Thanks, Maya.
Quiet conditions continue as we work our way throughout the overnight. Still a little bit of a push of an offshore flow here. That's going to turn around as we go through time. Temperatures bottoming out into the mid-50s. A little cooler northbound toward Oceanside and over the interior toward Ramona down to 49 degrees as well. Mid-40s around Mount Laguna, Borrego Springs drops down just shy of 60. Another bright and beautiful day on Thursday. And notice the position of high pressure, so we're still getting a little bit of an offshore flow component. So another day of sunshine, another mild day out there, especially over the interior valleys as we climb back in the 80s toward Ramona. Oceanside toward Chula Vista, just a little bit cooler than some recent days here. Borrego Springs up into the mid-90s, and we'll climb into the upper 50s around Mount Laguna. The core of the warmth begins to shift east as we go into Friday, and now we see our onshore flow. So even though the wet weather's to the north, we'll start to notice an uptick in the cloud coverage here, those low clouds coming in. And then later on this weekend, we'll be talking about some wet weather, some showers making their way back into the picture, perhaps a period of rain as well, and some rough surf. It's going to be a slow-moving storm system, and there can be some travel delays along Interstate 5. We'll take out to the coast here first. Notice again the cooler air working its way in, some showers Saturday as well as Sunday, and then we'll break as we work our way into Monday. But still a nice looking Thursday to enjoy. We're also going to be looking quiet here the next I'll say Thursday and Thursday night time frame, but later on Friday night into Saturday, we'll see our storm system approach. There can be some showers. We're not looking at heavy rain with this event, but definitely enough to cause at least a few minor backups. And we'll notice the wind here. Perhaps see a bigger component along with the cooler air sweeping its way into the mountainous terrain. Toward the deserts, we could also see a shower later on Saturday afternoon. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Justin Pavic.
If you're a dog owner and like walking your dog around Mission Bay, you could soon do that more freely. Currently, from the months between April and October, you can only walk your dog around the bay from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. And from November to March, that time's 4 p.m. to 9 a.m. But after a meeting tonight with the Pacific Beach Planning Committee, that could change as they discuss if those time restrictions could be lifted. More than 5,000 people signed a petition in favor of lifting the restrictions, but not everyone is in favor.
We need to preserve this sharing of the space, that not everybody likes dogs.
We pay a lot of money in taxes, okay? There's no reason why we can't walk our dogs with a leash anytime we want to.
The Pacific Beach Planning Group will meet tonight at 6:30. Dozens of high school students from around San Diego are midway through a national competition creating projects to solve their community's most critical problems. It's called the Aspen Challenge, and we showed you the kickoff in February. KPBS education reporter MG Perez caught up with the team from Mission Bay High School working to support their mental health.
Anywhere that you want to travel that you haven't been, here's a bunch of places magazines.
15-year-old Tegan Grizz has a vision. She's a sophomore from Mission Bay High School, hoping to help other students find their vision too. Cutting and pasting their way to less stress.
I've already had to start with my college applications, getting things built up. So future is something that stresses people out. Vision boarding is just something that it's calming, it's nice. It kind of lets you see like you're planning out your future. You're planning out something that you see yourself doing. Tegan is one of 8 members of her school's team taking on the Aspen Challenge. In February, 150 high school students from the San Diego Unified District became competitors in the national academic competition, trying to find solutions to major problems from immigration to homelessness and much-needed support for mental health, especially for children who survived the COVID shutdown. Yemaya Bruce and her Mission Bay teammates created what they call the mediums of mental health.
Art is something that can reduce stress. It's an abstract idea, so there's no right or wrong way to do it, and it's an individual approach.
According to the team's research, completing an origami folded paper swan can create self-confidence and encourage serenity. And the path to positivity is also paved with plenty of colors and translates in any language.
今天我们在图书馆帮人
16-year-old Matilda Myers started learning Chinese in kindergarten. Her message here is simple.
We are helping people. We're here at the library. We have lots of activities like drawing and writing and doing poems.
This community fair at the Pacific Beach Library this week is just one part of the Mission Bay High School team's project that will end with a formal presentation on May 1st in front of the other teams and the Aspen Challenge judges. Their advisor says it's a teachable moment for everyone.
They're go-getters, and it's helping them beyond school. I mean, they're learning skills that are going to be more useful to them in the real world than maybe book learning.
It's not just about the competition, it's about creating a long-lasting memory, a long-lasting solution that will continue to help multiple people.
That's help that also comes with hope. MG Perez, KPBS News.
And here's a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom. On NPR's Morning Edition, Stephen speaks with an immigration lawyer about whether President Biden has the authority to shut down the border. And KPBS Midday Edition will have the weekend arts preview, including a sneak peek of what you can see at the San Diego Arab Film Festival. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good night.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.